doing something that kind of
Had
reverts
the
back to
applicant done what they were supposed to, they kept their mouth shut, there was a day argument.
So I've been taught how
We
to
want
turn
to
it
make,
off,
yeah,
but
we're
nobody's yet.
supposed to be honest.
I mean, come on.
We could have done it verbatim,
We don't want
just
to.
kind
So
of,
it's just kind of one of those.
just have this.
They left all the cuss words out.
And then, you know,
When the teachers, it kind of make me look like that.
Nobody can make you look anywhere. You do that by yourself, son. I want to see that. I like what they said about me. I discussed the three-part test required to grant this type of variance. Of course, he
It's like, I send you the uniform development.
calls it like he sees it.
We will try to be more politically correct.
Oscar's nation.
Okay, here we go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June 10th, 2013 Planning Commission meeting. I'd like to remind everybody to please set your phones to silent. And if any member of the audience needs a listening device, please check with staff, and I'm sure they'll set you up. Mr. Garter, will you please call the roll?
Autry. Hoskins.
Here.
Jesser. Pennington.
Here.
Honchel.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Winston.
Here.
Bunch.
Here.
Noble.
Here. Okay, we have 4 items on consent. Approval of the minutes, a preliminary plat, 13-4387 for 3031 North Gully Road. Administrative item number 13-4407 for 175 West MLK Boulevard, and a vacation, 13-4385, 867 North College. If there's any member of the audience or the commission that needs any of these items pulled for discussion, please let me know.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner,
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Garner, will you please call the roll?
Hoskins.
Yes.
Pennington.
Yes.
Honchel.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Winston.
Yes.
Bunch.
Yes.
Noble.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the first item of old business is conditional use 13-4365 for 1720 East Zion Road. The applicant has asked that this item be tabled, and I know in agenda we had a brief discussion as to a date. Do we want to set a date for how far out we can table this, or do we want to have discussion on this, or?
I guess the applicant asked June 24th.
Okay, I didn't see that. Okay, is that sufficient?
I think we ought to do what they ask,
Okay.
to try to make sure that the shotgun clock doesn't go off on us. There's a limit to how fast we have to make a decision on one of these, or else it's deemed approved
Okay.
by the federal law.
And that's I was just getting a little confused as to what we had decided. Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I'll make a motion to table conditional use permit 13-4365 till the next meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Mr. Garner, will you please call the roll?
Hoskins.
Yes.
Jesser. Pennington.
Yes.
Honchel.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Winston.
Yes.
Bunch.
Yes.
Noble.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, the first item of new business is conditional use permit 13-4381 for 1649 North Viewpoint Drive. Jesse, I guess, can we have the staff report, please?
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a conditional use permit to allow an accessory structure on a property prior to the single-family dwelling. Under some of our supplementary regulations, when you have a vacant piece of property, you can't build an accessory building on there first. You need to have a house, a principal structure on there before you install a principal or an accessory building. The property owner, Mr. Jarrett, owns the property next door. It kind of intersects, is perpendicular to this piece of property, has a single-family home. It joins us, simply wants to put his accessory building on this adjacent lot, but because it's undeveloped and is a separate lot of record, it does require a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission to be approved. The Planning Commission, the majority of the members that are here tonight actually saw this item in 2011 and approved it. There was no neighborhood comment at that time. We have not heard any neighborhood comment at this point. I believe Mr. Jarrett has spoken with his neighbors about this and hasn't had any objections to it. but because he did not receive a building permit to construct this, the conditional use expired. That's what allows you to keep moving forward with that conditional use. So he's had to return to the planning commission for approval again for essentially the exact same request on the piece of property. Staff is recommending approval again with 3 basic conditions of approval, and I can answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant available? If you would, tell us your name and tell us a little bit about your project.
My name is Hugh Jarrett. I'm the applicant here. My house basically abuts this vacant lot where we want to put the building. I was here 2 years ago. Instead of building my building in, we got foundation piers instead. So our time lapsed. So now we've saved back up and would like to start. So it's basically going at the back in those woods back there. It's behind my house. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public here to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the floor to the public and bring it to the commission.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner.
I'll move to approve conditional use permit 13-4381 for Jarrett.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gardner, will you please call the roll?
Hoskins,
Yes.
Pennington,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Winston,
Yes.
Bunch,
Yes.
Noel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item we have is conditional use permit 13-4390 for 210 Crossover Road, Central EMS. Let's see, Jesse, will you please give us staff report?
Certainly. 210 South Crossover Road. This is just north of Crossover Road and about a lot north of Wyman Road, or excuse me, north of Huntsville Road on Crossover, just north of Wyman Road. Existing single-family home there. Appears to be on somewhat of a smaller lot, but actually is surrounded in total by about 4.5 acres as part of a larger piece of property that's simply just fenced off from the back portion of it. So it is fairly separated from the residences to the north, and across the street is actually undeveloped property. So the residential neighborhood kind of starts at this property and moves south and back to the east. The applicants are proposing to operate an emergency ambulance station from this property. Not what I originally thought it would be. When you look at the Central EMS location on South School, where you've got a number of ambulances and very commercial looking land use, that is not what is being requested on this piece of property, which was not what I originally expected when I saw this application and spoke with the applicants. Really what they want to use is kind of like a satellite station. They'll have 2 employees, 1 ambulance that operate from the site from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. After 7 p.m., there's nobody here. From 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., they may or may not be on site depending on if they're on call or not, so you wouldn't even notice that there was anybody using the building. It would look like a single family home and everybody's at work. When they are there, the only thing you're gonna see is simply an ambulance parked out in the driveway. That's it. That's the sole purpose of the piece of property. It's really a satellite operation to give them faster response times on the east side of Fayetteville and out east side of Washington County to help them respond to emergencies in those areas. Our original concerns had to do with, the number of employees that would be here, the number of ambulances, the parking, the activity, the hours of operation. Had a lot of concerns about that, but given the limited use, both in hours of operation, the number of employees, and the fact that this is really intended to be a temporary location for them. They are looking for a full-time location in another area on the east side of Fayetteville or in the county area, but this is kind of a temporary solution for them. Their proposal is to be out by the end of this year. We wrote it for a 1-year time limit. If they still happen to be in this location, we'd like it to come back to the planning commission just to see if there's any concerns raised by the neighborhood that we need to address at that point. So we put a 1-year time limit on it. Our hopes, and I believe the hopes of Central EMS, is they'll be in a permanent home before that time period is up. Because of the limited use of this property, we are recommending approval with 5 conditions of approval. Number 1 is the limitation on the 1-year time period, at which point it would come back before the planning commission. And then simply the limitations that I've discussed and that the applicants put in their letter concerning the hours of operation, the number of employees, wall sign requirements. My understanding, they're not even going to install a sign on the property. And they're not going to install any new lighting, so there really won't be any changes to this piece of property. So we are comfortable with it. I can answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay. Is the applicant available? If you could, state your name and tell us about your project.
I'm Becky Stewart, Chief with Central EMS.
Okay.
And basically, Jesse covered everything. It will be a temporary, short-term, one ambulance station during the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we're looking for a longer range solution at this point. Right now, we have the ambulance stationed at the parking lot at Harps at Mission and Crossover. So we're looking for a place that they can get out of the truck.
Okay. Okay, thanks. If we have any questions, we'll
Thank you.
get you back up here and ask you. Thank you. Okay, is there any member of the public to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, I close the floor to public comment, bring it back to the commission. Commissioners?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner?
I appreciate staff putting that first condition in there with the time limit on it to bring it back in a year. I'm very comfortable with this, so I'll move to approve conditional use permit 13-4390 for Central EMS.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. I do have one real brief question. And I don't know if this is for the applicant or for Jesse, but if the applicant is not going to put a sign up out there, do they, I don't know, I guess from a safety standpoint, and this might be sound kind of silly, but having an ambulance, I don't suppose the ambulance is just going to drive out of there at rocket speeds, but just, you know, when you drive down School Street, everybody knows where the ambulance service is at. You know, it has a signage and there's the cars there and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But with an ambulance alone, even just a lone ambulance at that location, when it's pulling out, if people kind of know that there's an ambulance station in that area,
Mm-hmm.
they might kind of monitor their speed or be a little bit more prepared to stop, or at least be cognizant of the fact that there is an ambulance service there. Does the city not see that as being any kind of safety concern or anything like that? I know this is limited use and all that kind of thing, but I just didn't know if there was any consideration to that.
I mean, the ambulance will be parked relatively close to the street, so
Okay.
I think it will become a bit of a signal, especially to the residents that live in the area. I think they will begin to see that and pick up the pattern that it's going to be there for a little while. As far as signage goes, I mean, we'd be happy to work with the applicant or with the commission if there's something you'd like to see out there. There's a little bit of a balance we have to strike with what the sign code actually allows for commercial type establishment. It's fairly limited, but if it was something more just informative as to an emergency location, something like that, we could work something out with them if there was some recommendation from the
Okay,
commission.
well, and like I said, I didn't know if I was just being kind of silly about it. Okay, so we have
Can I say one thing? I'll just say there's good sight lines where that driveway is.
Well,
Both ways on 265.
when I drove by, there's a big shrub, and when you're driving northbound, that was the only concern that I had, was that if they're tucked way back into the property and they, coming out. Right? Is that what I'm seeing in the front of the house? Yeah.
This is the house.
Okay.
You can see it's
But
pretty
that's
flat.
what the concern that I had, was just the shrubs. You know, if they were tucked back in there pretty good and just on a regular routine basis, we're hopping out there, just so people that they know that that is where an ambulance is supposed to be. You know what I mean?
You might have the applicant address how they pull out onto roadways from,
Okay.
if you have a question I'm not sure how I know they have training and all that sort of stuff on, but I'm not sure how to answer that exactly.
Ma'am, could you come back up? I'm sorry. If you wouldn't mind, just speak to just a little bit, just what the procedure is, when you signal your lights or how all that stuff works, just whenever you respond to a call.
Okay, if the ambulance is dispatched on an emergency call, they will stop at the end of the driveway and be sure that all oncoming traffic sees them. And essentially, emergency lights ask for permission to enter traffic. It doesn't give our drivers the right to disobey any traffic laws. So they're all trained to follow the traffic laws and use the signaling devices as asking. So they wouldn't just dart out into traffic.
I wasn't trying to imply that.
Oh, no, I know that, but
Just the flow of traffic at certain times of the day is a lot more congested in that area rather than other times, and that's the only concern that I had, so.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're concerned about that with any station location. And as far as signage goes, I would have to do some research on that.
Well, if the truck is gonna be parked at the road, like Jesse mentioned, I think that people will get the idea that
Oh, yeah,
that's-
they'll see them
that's
there.
where it's supposed to be. So that was the only thing. I just didn't know, where you guys were gonna locate the truck.
It'll be
to the
backed
drive.
up to the garage, which is probably 50 feet
Yeah.
from the roadway in total. So maybe, they should be able to see it from the roadway.
Okay, that's all I needed. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Gardner, will you please call the roll?
Hoskins?
Yes.
Chesser?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Anchel?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Winston?
Yes.
Bunch?
Yes.
Noble?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, let's see. The next item we have is a conditional use permit number 13-4392 for 1910 North Old Wire Road. Let's see, this is Andrew. Would you give us a staff report, please?
Yes, sir. This property is about 7 acres. It's at 1910 Old Wire Road. It was developed in the mid-1970s for the Sequoia United Methodist Church in a parking lot. The eastern portion of the site, as you can see, is undeveloped except for open soccer and baseball fields. It's surrounded by single-family residences to the north, south, and west, and there's a cemetery to the east, and the cemetery that goes all the way over to Mission. They're requesting to do some minor additions to the church, including a storage room of less than 1,000 square feet and a raised stage area. The church was constructed, according to my research, prior to the zoning code. So they had a large-scale development, but for some reason they did not have a conditional use permit. So this conditional use permit would bring the church into compliance. The zoning is RSF4, single family, 4 units per acre. And it would also, the conditional use would allow for the addition proposed. And in staff's findings in a report for conditional use, we do find that it's a compatible use and has been there for a number of decades and is well established and is an appropriate use. So we're recommending approval of the conditional use permit, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks. Is the applicant available? Hi, if you could just tell us your name.
Ryan Gill, McCall Engineers. I'll answer any questions I can, but it's pretty straightforward and
Okay.
covered well. Thank you.
If we have any questions, we'll get back to you. Thanks. Are there any members of the public to speak to this? If you could state your name, please.
Aubrey Shepherd, my only question is, now why is it not becoming, that parcel becoming institutional? Is that,
I think that was just
Well-
faster to do it this way. Eventually they probably should become institutional.
yeah. Thank you.
That's it. Was there anybody else out that had a question? Okay, I'll close the floor to the public and open it up to the commission.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner.
since Mr. Shepherd was kind enough to ask the question I was going to ask, I'm going to move that we approve CUP 13-4392 with staff recommendations of approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Was there any other comments? Okay.
Actually, Andrew, you gave the best answer to that question I've heard. It is pretty simple. It costs about twice as much to rezone and takes about twice as long. And so that's why people often do the conditional use permit.
Okay. Yeah, if you could call the roll, please.
Hoskins?
Yes.
Chesser?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Anchel?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Winston?
Yes.
Bunch?
Yes.
Noble?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, let's see, the last item that we have is a rezone 13-4384 for 1315 North Rupel Road. Let's see, who has this one? Quinn, who's in the middle of the page, not at the bottom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property here is located north of Weddington Drive and west of Rupel Road. It's currently zoned RSF 7. However, development is limited by a prior bill of assurance to a maximum of 17 single-family homes. The request tonight is to rezone approximately 6.89 acres from RSF 7 to a multi-zone, including 2.84 acres of RSF 8 and 4.05 acres of RSF 12. This would allow the construction of single-family and multifamily residential. Staff finds the requested zoning consistent with planning objectives and our policies, including the provisions of the new West Weddington plan, of which this is a part. And the West Weddington plan identifies this property as appropriate for a variety of housing, commercial uses, which would intensify as you move toward the corner. This zoning request does achieve that in staff opinion. Also, I'd like to note the RSF 8 will create what we feel is an appropriate transition between existing single-family homes that are to the north and to the west, and the proposed multifamily or potential for multifamily development. So staff is recommending forwarding RZN 134384 to the full City Council with recommendation for approval.
Okay, thanks. Is the applicant available? Could just state your name and tell us about your project.
My name is Ferdy Forey. I'm with Civil Design Engineers. And I guess we originally submitted this with the entire area that was originally RSF 7 to be rezoned as RMF 12. And we created that buffer after some comments, but that was our original submittal. And I think we're okay with the way it's laid out now.
That it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, if we have any questions, we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public here to speak to this? If you could, state your name, please.
Aubrey Shepherd again. I see there's a lot of nice-looking timber out at the Weddington side of this. And is that part of the proposal, the lower area there? Or is it just the area that's prairie, cleared prairie, open prairie?
That's approximately the area there. So that area to the south is already zoned RMF 12. Oh,
The timbered
that?
Well,
area?
that's fine.
sorry.
The timbered area is zoned,
Well, it's basically the square area, Andrew, if you could kind of.
that one up there, that parcel.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
We're just discussing the rezone of that
Right.
area only.
Somebody beat you to the trees on that one, Aubrey.
Right. It's already down. There to there.
Oh, these are down too?
Correct. It's the portion that Andrew
Right.
just boxed for you.
Okay. Well, I haven't been along the road lately, but I think that's something you know, I know this is not the point at which all the decisions about the environment are made, but I always love to ask that to prepare for the future when it might come for
Okay.
consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the comments and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Hoskins.
question for staff. Under this new proposed zoning, how does the revised density relate to the previous zoning, including the bill of assurance that went with it?
The RSF 7, the entire piece, the entire 6.9 acres is currently limited to 17 single-family homes. That's all that can be built there. As long as there's any portion of that RSF 7 remaining in place, those densities or approximate densities would apply, as I understand it. So that's the reason they're going to RSF 8. So that section does increase from approximately the zone from RSF, approximately 2.5 units per acre to a maximum of RSF 8 in the northern wrap, and the bottom section is full RMF 12. So the bill of assurance disappears completely. Am I understanding your question?
No. My question is currently in this property they're wanting to rezone, they can build a total of 17 units. regardless of what the zoning is.
That's correct.
Once this is rezoned, the bill of assurance goes away. What is the maximum number of units they can build in this same parcel?
They can build 4.05 acres of up to 12 units per acre,
So that's 4950.
and they can build 2.84 units of approximately a maximum of 8 units per acre.
So this is a significant increase in density then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Question for the applicant, please. Of course, I know that we're not looking at a preliminary plat at this level.
Yeah.
However, one of the things that I consider is access to something, especially as high density as what you're asking for here. And this lot is or this acreage is currently served by a single dead-end road. Okay, and so when this, of course, you have the luxury of this piece that you've picked out of stepping to the property lines without connecting to a major road or a thoroughfare of any kind, other than the stub out to the north. That would give me serious pause as far as approving this goes.
What we would propose under the large scale, because the bottom area, the 8 acres that's already zoned RMF 12 would be part of the RMF 12 area that we're rezoning now. And the road that we show on the north side that goes in Rupel on this rezone request would loop around, and then where congressional comes out, we would align with it with another entry.
Okay, here's my question.
Yes.
Whenever you,
I'm Brian Moore, I'm actually the property owner. They're actually buying 21 and a half acres.
okay,
They're not just buying the 6.89 in the middle. They're gonna have, they've got the frontage all the way down here. You see the building on the southeast corner. The property lines actually starts there and goes all the way up. You could have 2 accesses off of Rupel. You could have the access to the north, and you could have a stub out to the west also. They're actually buying 21 and a half acres. They're not just, they're only rezoning just a small portion of that.
okay.
I mean, that kind of, I know where you're going. I mean, to have 6 acres and have that density with one in and out, it's not smart, but
Yeah.
they'll have plenty of
Okay,
accesses.
great. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. Do you need him to state his name for, I guess, maybe? He said he was the owner. I don't know if he stated.
No,
He
he
did?
said his name.
Brian Moore.
Okay. Question for staff. In the original zoning of this property, what was, how did that bill of assurance come about?
That is a good question. I spent a good deal of time researching that, and I was unable to determine why that happened. In fact, it appeared to be contrary to the minutes and the discussions of the Planning Commission at that time, which was they were concerned for higher density in that area. And so I can't say how they ended up with a lower density at all. I wasn't able to determine. I was curious.
What year was that this happened?
I believe it was 2006.
So it's not that long.
The letter is dated 2006.
I would like to say bill of assurances are something that are offered voluntarily by the property owner. It's not something that city council or the planning commission can require. We did, Mr. Thompson researched this quite a bit. We talked about this for the last 40 days since they turned in their application. But, there's not anything that we could find other than the property owner brought it forward, although I'm sure they probably had conversations at different levels at some point as to why they offered the bill of assurances, but, there certainly wouldn't be
There's nothing in the city council meeting minutes either?
Yeah, as a developer myself, I don't typically offer up bill of assurances unless I feel the need to do so.
Right.
You know what I mean? So apparently somebody felt the need to offer one up for some reason.
Well, 2006, that was about the same time that the links and all that stuff was coming through at the same time.
Yeah.
That may have lent itself to
Which kind of makes
discussions.
it that much more ironic, really, that density is there.
Well, and that's what I mean, it may have lent itself to the developer feeling compelled to do something of that nature, I don't know. There's a lot of activity.
I don't think the links in this was common property owners.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay. That's all I got for right now.
Okay. Thanks. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner?
I'll move to forward to City Council with a recommendation for approval, rezone 13-4384 for 1315 North Rupel Road.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion and a second. Mr. Garner, please call the roll.
Hoskins,
Can you get back with me? No.
Chesser,
Yes.
Pennington,
Yes.
Ponchel,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Winston,
Yes.
Bunch,
No.
Noble.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, let's see. That concludes our agenda. Mr. Garner, did you have any announcements or anything?
We do have a subdivision committee meeting this Thursday, and I've kind of passed out the agenda for the committee members that are on that team. So.
Okay.
Looks like it's actually one of mine.
That's
I'm
it.
not filling
Thank
in
you.
for somebody. Go figure. Where that?